So, good morning. I'm Corey White. Thank you all for joining. And this is Lauren. She's helping out. She's setting up our presentation slash demo. We're talking about prevention as a business strategy. Briefly, I'll tell you a little bit about my background and experience. I've been in the security consulting space for the last 22 years. So I've been around, seen a lot of things happening. Right now, I'm SVP of the global consulting business at Silence. And Silence is a company that's focused on preventing cyber attacks. And on top of that, the consulting side of the house where we do incident containment and response. So I'm going to go through some of the live examples of what we've dealt with as it relates to security incidents that we've seen in the past year or so, give a full breakdown.
Corey, I accidentally clicked on the ransomware outside of the VM. I think everything's encrypted down.
So we're going to do a ransomware demo. I might have to pull out my laptop. It looks like it encrypted. Well, for the purpose of you guys, can we make this? Well, I guess you can't make it bigger, but this is what a ransomware message looks like. It actually pops up if you have. Anybody ever dealt with a ransomware incident before? A few. Well, I'll read kind of what it says here. All the files on the host and the network have been encrypted with strong algorithm, and it cannot be decrypted. Luckily, I'll get my laptop in a second here. It says, do not shut down or reset. Your files may be damaged or renamed. Probably in the background on this VM, it's probably just encrypting all the files. Like we showed the processor, it show that it is going pretty quickly. So give us a second to go and get another laptop and pull this back up. I work for Silence. We actually stop cyber attacks like this. Ransomware doesn't actually execute. So we're going to switch to the actual presentation and show you what we actually see with real-world ransomwares. That actually was a ransomware from one of our now customers. They have incidents. They get encrypted. We come in and get them contained. So we'll switch to a demo real quick. And Lauren, you want to walk through? Actually, before I start talking, I'll let you walk through what a ransomware incident looks like in detail. Lauren's one of our incident response consultants.
So this particular strain of ransomware is called BitPaymer. And the reason why BitPaymer is so lethal is that it essentially hides itself as soon as it executes on your system. So it's virtually basically untraceable. If we were to open the task manager right now, it would not show up as running any processes out of the ordinary. So there wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary running. And this is because, so I'll go into a little bit of file basics. So a file is essentially a stream of bytes. So in other words, kind of like a sequence of bytes all grouped together. And so this would be called, so a regular file would be a main file stream. And it also contains other alternate data streams. And so an alternate data stream is basically a hidden part of the file that's not usually shown in, I guess, like the task manager or in any of the file browsers. So it's not usually found. And so the reason why BitPaymer is so lethal is because when it executes, it deletes the executable. As you can see here, it's gone after I clicked on it. It's completely gone because it has split into various little copies in all alternate data streams. And so they are basically untraceable, and they are all in hidden files, so it is very difficult to find them and to see what is going on at the time. And what it does with these alternate data streams is, so ransomware normally receives its I guess like controls on what to do next from a server that's usually remote, and the attacker will be running that server and giving each piece of ransomware the different commands it needs to do. For example, if it needs to download any other files or if it needs to start encrypting the machine, then the attacker would send that code to that ransomware and basically give it instructions. So you could essentially have a piece of ransomware on your system that is completely dormant and it has not received instructions yet. And it's just waiting for instruction before it can run. And so with BitPaymer, all the little pieces of the file that are running at the time that are encrypting and embedding itself into your system are receiving different controls from the command and control servers. And so what happens is the attacker will just send those little pieces of code and the instructions to all those different little pieces of the ransomware that are running on the system. And so what it did while we were waiting there, it was probably encrypting everything. As you can see, it adds I don't know if you can see that far, but it adds a .locked extension to it, and basically that means it's been encrypted or locked up, so you won't be able to open it. You can try to open it right now, and it will not open.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So now we'll switch to the actual presentation. So when you think about preventing these types of attacks, you have to have a way to stop it from ever executing. If a detect and respond, type of tools in place, then it's going to execute. So, traditional antivirus is going to ultimately be not the solution you want because it's still going to execute on that system. So we talk about the evolution of getting to prevention as a business strategy, but now we're going to deep dive ransomware a lot more and what it really looks like in some of the cases we've dealt with. And I'll click through. So before we get into that, we've just talked about prevention, what it actually means to you. I want you to think about that first, and we'll finish off with what we see real world. So there are actually more than 4,000 ransomware attacks every single day. And that's grown, from 2015, and it's going to continue to grow because it is just simply a way to make money. We all have our day jobs, but with ransomware, there's so much money you can make. There's a new attack every 14 seconds, based upon the statistics and trends that we're seeing today. And so $11 billion annually, some of the real stats here that we see. This is an interesting one for me. You think about it takes 150 days for someone to detect that they are compromised. I come from a pen test background. You give me 150 days, then I'm going to get into anything into your system. Give me a couple days, I'm fully into your system. But what that means is most companies don't know that they're actually are compromised until something bad really happens or it manifests itself. So this is from a real ransomware case. This is a pop-up that one of our future clients ended up getting. A few things I'll point out. This was back in May, 5/15/2017. He had 4 days to pay the ransom, or his files would be lost. Now, if you think about it, these guys, they're sending these out to multiple, people. The ransomware as a service is out there. You can download the full toolkit for free. Only thing you need to provide is the email addresses. You provide the email addresses and blast it out, and this is going to start popping up. And as Lauren mentioned, you get the command and control. Now, interesting piece, if you can't read in the back, I'll read what it says here. I've already sent decryption keys to many customers who have sent me the correct amounts in Bitcoin, and I guarantee the decryptions for such honest customers. Send me a message with your unique Bitcoin wallet address an hour before payment, then you will receive decryption key more quickly. Now, what is interesting, this is a business. They cannot not decrypt your files. Because if that were a trend, then no one is going to pay the ransom because, hey, you didn't decrypt my files. So they always pay. I've yet to see when you pay and then they don't send the decryption key. They will always give you that decryption key. And the next piece to it is, if you notice down here, again, back in May, $600 worth of Bitcoin to this address. How much is 600 in Bitcoin worth today? Anybody know? Well, I Googled it. Hopefully I did it right. That's what Google says. Nice little conversion there. You see it increasing at the end of 2017. That's a ton of money. I'm in the wrong job. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm in the wrong job. I could be somewhere, have my yacht in the Mediterranean Sea off of Malta somewhere. I could be there. But instead, I have this job. I'm a good guy on the right side of it. But I want my $6 million. So We did 330 cases of ransomware last year. That many incidents, came to our incident response team. And, I'll give one example of a pretty large one. It was a law firm, and it always do these over a holiday. This was, I want to say it was Memorial Day weekend, but they encrypted the whole law firm's files. That next Tuesday, they had to litigate cases. They asked for $1 million. These guys had equity lines of credits on their houses that they were going to the bank to get to pay this off, and we actually had to float them and say, okay, they couldn't get us the money in time. We downloaded a couple files from the hackers to verify, is this really your file? And so the partner said, hey, download this file. This is for the case. And if they actually have that, then I need to litigate this on Tuesday. If not, I will lose this case. So we downloaded, verified that they were going to actually give their files. And we verified with them, do you really want to pay this? And they said yes. We negotiated with the hackers. We got them down to around $900,000. And we paid it. And then they paid us back, to cover the incident. So this is a real deal. People are paying, very large amounts for ransomware to get it contained. You got to figure out a way to be able to prevent it. We'll talk more about that in a few slides. So 1 million Bitcoin were paid in 2018, from our side to contain incidents. Now, that is not including the $1 million we just talked about for that one case. I actually excluded that. These were all the little cases. So it was almost really, 2 million that we paid to contain, those. Oh, my bad. Sorry. This is 2018. Already this year we paid that. Sorry. Already this year we have paid that. We're 1 month in to help contain these incidents. This is how bad of a problem that this is. So, high level, how it works. I'm going to talk through, a couple incidents. The entry point is important. It could be a phishing email. It could be an attachment. Sometimes it could even be a website you go to and something gets downloaded to your computer. But once it actually executes, some of the more sophisticated ransomwares, and I'll go through some of the ransomware families, their goal is to delete all your backups. Or they target specific industries. And there's certain ones that go just after hospitals because they have to pay. But going through this, once it's installed, the encryption happens, and then the extortion, as Lauren described. So what makes you vulnerable? Lack of a formal backup plan. Backups are increasingly being targeted, especially in 2017. We saw that as a trend to where the hackers hack in and they attack your backups. Because it used to be, you're like, well, okay, I'm not going to pay the ransom because I got a good backup. And so the ransomware, hackers weren't getting paid. So they fixed that in some of their malware to delete the backups. We've seen several companies, because they didn't think they were a target, they said, we don't have a cybersecurity strategy at all. We don't need it because we're not a target. Nobody's going to come from us. But ransomware was interesting. You think about the cost of us to do an incident on the smaller end, they'll charge $2,000 to $3,000, dollars, and it costs more for us to come in sometimes and contain it than to just pay it. So they specifically set it to that amount so they would always get paid. If they want to bring in a cybersecurity firm to try to fix it, then it would cost more to do that. And you can't decrypt it. It was funny, 4 years ago, there was some ransomware that we could decrypt. One of our researchers figured out a way. They were using basically a basic XOR. They were not actually using real encryption. They didn't think that the end user would figure it out, but we figured out how to decrypt it. And so we were able to decrypt it for a while. We worked closely with the FBI. Whenever they saw those cases come in, they would say, hey, talk to Silence. They might be able to decrypt it. And then, unfortunately, some very nice gentleman, published a blog about it, and then the ransomware guys saw that we knew how to decrypt it. Not a Silence employee, but someone else after fame published it, and then unfortunately they stopped using that, so we weren't able to decrypt it anymore. So the other piece, legacy software, outdated hardware, that's a common problem, and many companies have that. Downloads from emails or compromised websites, and then unpatched operating systems is another attack vector that they exploit. So I'm gonna build this out, but again, this is a live, ransomware message. We've changed it up a little bit, but if it's your job to pay an invoice, and I can look and see at what company, if company A on LinkedIn, and see, hey, this is the person that pays the invoices. Let me shoot this to them. Please see the attached invoice, and they specifically say Microsoft Word document when it's not. It's actually malware. And remit payment according to the terms listed at the bottom of the invoice. Let us know if you have any questions. And it's signed by someone that they know. This person, they actually knew who this Adam Brewer, and again, we changed the name there, is. So when they clicked on it, they were done. But the goal is to ensure that someone actually is going to click. So they do everything they possibly can to research ahead of time to make sure they get that click. Because again, I'm in the wrong job. I could be somewhere making it rain, making 5,000 a day. All I need is just one person to click, and I'm done. I'm out at the beach enjoying myself. So this is pretty common. We see this again almost every day. This is another example of the payment negotiations. So this particular person said, "Hello, I'd like to inquire how much it would be to get my data back. The file IDs are, and we will resolve this matter quickly as we can." They reply back and they say the price is $4,000 and minimum price for you. They're very specific. They don't want to do a lot of negotiations, so they said no discounts for that amount, and they will make sure that they prove that they have those files. That's what they're talking about in the middle, and they give instructions on how to decrypt it. So this is pretty common. Common form letter, and that's what the communication looks like. We also, depending on who the hackers are, we can negotiate some of the files and get a lower price. That's one of the techniques that we commonly use to try to get the price lower if they haven't encrypted the whole network. So the worst types of ransomware in 2012, I'm not going to talk about Petra because I'm sure you guys heard plenty about that. But Lockheed's been pretty popular over the last 2 years, and it's getting more popular because now I'll talk about some of the techniques that they use with it. But here's what we see. So the ransomware families. So Bad Rabbit, and I'll read here. Bad Rabbit is it uses SMBs to communicate. Does everybody know what Mimikatz is? So Mimikatz, if you get a chance, just Google it and go to the website. It's a free tool that basically gets passwords out of memory that pen testers, hackers use. And so what they've done in Bad Rabbit is bundled in Mimikatz to harvest credentials. So once they harvest credentials, then they can use that and they'll send it back to the command and control server, or they can use that to spread throughout the network at that point and get more access to more systems. And as a result of that, then the more systems you encrypt, the higher the ransom and the more likelihood that someone's going to pay it. And again, Adobe Flash. So Defray, one of my favorites. So basic Word document is how it's usually done, kind of like the example we gave. But it kills all sources of backups and recovery, including remote backups. So if your backups are in the cloud, this automatically searches for that and kills it. It gets credentials, and they're able to use that to log in remotely and destroy. So, or they manually do it. These are remote hackers. So if it's a large company and I want to charge a ton of money for that ransomware, I'm going to make sure your backups are dead. You do not have them before I send you that ransomware. So it's an orchestrated attack. These attacks started with, hey, you clicked on something, you get the pop-up. No, it would lay dormant, spread throughout the environment on all your endpoints, and then when they're ready and they know those backups are destroyed, boom. That happened to how do I sanitize this? To a large hosting company that, let's just say, hosted mining type information, a public company. That company was in the process about to file their quarterly reports. Those quarterly reports were delayed almost 2 months because they had to verify that the information had not been changed by the hackers. And all their business partners then knew about that they had been compromised because they had to communicate with them and go and talk to them and say, hey, our systems are down. And they asked why. They had to say ransomware. FBI was involved, Secret Service was involved, but they had to go and validate all the data from their quarterly reports based upon that. LoveCrypt. So this uses a malicious CHM file and PowerShell. So people think about malicious executables as being bad, but if you're not looking at PowerShell as an attack vector, that is something that is built into Windows. It's enabled on every single machine. I don't need to create an executable. I can actually script it in PowerShell, my ransomware, and do just as much damage. So a lot of the commercial tools out there are looking for bad executables, but not checking for PowerShell scripts. And you can completely script out ransomware attacks. We will see more of this in the future because as machine learning and AI gets more sophisticated, this is a way that you can potentially get away that part of it. That's why having script control type of capabilities are important. And then Locky. We got inundated, I want to say about a year and a half ago, with hospitals being attacked. Again, I don't know if you guys saw the Grey's Anatomy episode when they got attacked with ransomware. My wife was watching it, and she was asking me questions because they brought in the FBI. When the FBI came in, she said, "Is that really what happens?" No, the FBI actually doesn't come on site, but they do get on the phone and they will talk to you. And one of the questions she asked was, the FBI guy said, "Hey, I know you want to pay this, but we don't pay ransomwares." That is the official statement, but the unofficial one, he actually clarified and said, "But we have to sometimes." The official statement is no, they don't, pay hackers, but they have to. This is, the highest level of encryption that is used. There's no way around it. You actually have to pay. But the official statement again is still that we don't. And then Petra. Yeah, what was interesting about this one is where it overwrites the master boot record with the ransomware screen. So that it takes full control of that system. It is one of the hardest ones to fix. So I'll finish with, what is your prevention strategy? How do you stop these types of attacks? And again, this is open for Q&A. We have a mic here. Let's talk through some of the experiences that you guys have had with ransomware or how you've dealt with them. I think, Cal, you mentioned you've had an experience with ransomware. You want to give the mic to him?
Yeah, at my company, we had a few workstations where malicious documents had come in probably late 2016, early 2017. So the ransomware wasn't that sophisticated. So it only encrypted their workstation. So we were able to just kind of wipe it, give them a new one. But what's worrying is our SMB shares and backups. Do you have any tips or solutions to kind of protect those types of situations where they're connected to a network share, or to make sure that those don't get hit?
Yeah, and so what we see with the network share and SMB type connections, if you're looking for the right things, then you're able to see that malicious activity. Because the first thing they got to do with these shares is get credentials. Once they get those credentials, then they'll use that to spread. So one of the techniques that we help our customers to identify is look for what we call anomalous activity associated with user profiles. So let's take the Sony attack. It wasn't ransomware, but it was similar. So they got credentials. They, off of a phishing attack, and once they got those credentials, they built it into the malware, and then they logged into thousands of systems, with those credentials. And every time you log into a new system, it creates a new user profile. and also a new timestamp. So say the C White account, if that C White account's never logged into these systems, and yeah, I'm an administrator, but I've never logged into those systems, say it's 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and then all of a sudden you see, why did C White log into these systems at 3:30 in the morning? It could be for planting malware or ransomware, and that's one of the ways that it spreads for some of these big orchestrated attacks. So that's one of the ways you could look into, fixing it. Any other, comments? You're in the front row. I gotta pick on you. Any thoughts or comments? Any experience with ransomware? Not personally. Okay, good. Heather? Similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you do anything around security awareness to educate that user, or no?
Not really the time it was an individual.
It was just an individual. Okay. Any other experiences? Did you guys want to share with ransomware? Questions, comments? Okay, I'll finish with, one of the reasons why we have so much, experience with ransomware. There are a lot of companies that don't actually do incident response or incident containment as it relates to ransomware because it's nothing to do. The goal is that if I'm a hacker, if I'm a ransomware guy, and I know, okay, here's a list of in 2017 all the people that paid, and here's how much they paid. And if they don't have any preventative solution in place, then I'm gonna hit them up in 2018. That's my reoccurring revenue stream. We've already started to see that happen, from 2016 hacks, to 2017 hacks. So the reason why we respond to incidents is because we can actually put something in place that's gonna, contain those incidents and not let the ransomware malware, attack happen. So that's why we've done over 300 cases in the last year. And so, one of the ways you can do it is definitely with looking at the malicious activity and compromised, hosts and accounts. The other way is to, be able to block it at the endpoint. There are other ways you also want to look for unpatched systems because there's so many unknown attacks out there, and if you haven't properly patched your systems, then that is also an attack vector that you want to make sure you cover. The last one I'll say is think about your firewalls, your egress points, what type of ports are allowed to go out and where they're allowed to go to, and you can lock down that activity as well, because if they can't get their command and control to work, then they can't communicate back out. So think about where you do business. If you only do business, say, in the United States and nothing internationally, and you may want to block certain countries. I've seen people do that as a strategy, or log that activity and monitor it. If you have a good SIM, those logs will show a lot of the malicious traffic going out, and you'll be able to see, why are we communicating to this IP address? Why is that host doing it? And so having that level of granularity is pretty important to be able to determine what's happening. Okay. With that said, if there are no other questions, thank you guys for your time this morning.